What's up everyone? In this Motive Garage update, it's going to fill you guys in on what's happening with our project cars and also a little bit of behind the scenes of what's going on with Project No Secrets. Now, you've probably been wondering where our four main project cars are, the Supra, our GT-Rs and Jet 200, and essentially what's happened with those cars and the reason you haven't seen them is just purely due to, I guess, time more than anything else. So we had GT-R Challenge, Drag Battle, GT-R Festival all in the space of a month, the end of last year, and obviously quite busy getting ready for those events, editing, shooting, etc. And the other problem that we had is the workshops we deal with, well, they had to get cars ready as well. So we basically had to put everything on hold for about 6 weeks at the end of last year. And everyone's just getting back to work, I guess, in full swing now. And the other problem is our four cars are all waiting for big ticket things to happen. So our Supra has the downpipe and a few other mods done to it, but we've been waiting for some feedback from EcoTech to sort out the tuning on that. So we should see that car back next week. Our R33 GT-R is basically ready to have, well, the engine built and put in. You saw at the end of last year, we got all of our engine components ready, and basically now it's just in the queue to get assembled at CID. Our Jet 200 did a lot of behind the scenes stuff last year with product development, and basically now is at the point where we can finally start the build. We found out that the block that we originally had can no longer suitable, so we're basically starting with a whole fresh block and a whole new build for that engine, and then we'll continue that development. Some big announcements about that car probably coming in a couple of months. And Project No Secrets basically got to the point where not really anything I could do to it that was a major thing worth doing a feature of. So it's just kind of sat waiting for its turn to get into grim performance, to start the other fabrication, repair work and other fabrication work to kind of sort the body out. And then basically once that's done, it can then go and get the fiberglass work done, then it can go to the paint shop, and then we basically have a shell that we can start assembling. So basically all of the cars have just been waiting for one big thing to happen to start that snowball again. So just purely coincidental that Day Job came out while these cars are quiet, to be brutally honest. But hey, Day Job's a totally different style of show, different theme, different vibe. It's not replacing Motive Garage. We will continue to have both so that we can have a serious high-end builds and also have some fun, quick stuff that we can do as well. So about to get the R33 GT-R down, put a new drive shaft in it, get it on the trailer and get it over to Grim Performance, and we'll give you a bit of behind the scenes look at getting that car sorted and planning out the next lot of fabrication work on that car, which will hopefully kick off tomorrow. Let's go. All right, so Dennis and I have gone over the whole car front to back and made sort of the initial list of fabrication repair work that needs to be done. In the engine bay, at the moment, what we need to get done is pretty straightforward. We need to fix up the holes around the intercooler pipes. They're an absolute mess. They've been butchered. We've got to clean those up. We need to seal up where the pedal box is in the floor, because the last guys decided when they put the pedal box in, they cut a hole in the floor and put gaffer tape over the hole. So obviously the hole in the firewall where the exhaust used to go, that needs to be sealed up and redone. We'll do some of the exhaust work potentially with the dump pipe and finish the front pipe off, but we'll do the rest of it later. So not a huge amount of work to do in the engine bay, but just some main stuff to kind of tidy it up before I do any other running of lines or wiring or anything before paint. So the big job though is in here, the interior. Now, as you discovered in one of our old videos, when we did the cage in this, we removed the old cage and found evidence of probably 2 or 3 roll cages that have been in this car in the past. So AGI did some extra reinforcement plates that fit the floor perfectly. They designed them in CAD. So what we need to do is mark out all the plates in the floor. We're going to take the cage out, then we're going to weld all the plates in after we tidy everything up, clean up all the old holes, and basically make sure the structural integrity of the floor is all there to then put the roll cage back in. Then we'll put the cage back in. We've got to mount seats, which I've got to go pick up from Motorsport Connections. We'll get seats and harnesses sorted out in the car as well. And then basically once the cage and the seats are sorted, they can all come out. There's a little bit of work to do around the pedal box, nothing too crazy, but essentially that's the main thing we need to do in here. Now, because we know we're putting an interior back in later on, there are a few other holes and things like that we don't really need to worry about from a fabrication side of things. We'll seal them up with grommets and things like that later. So Let's have a look in the boot. So what we've decided to do in the boot is leave the factory shelf where the battery is in the top of the fuel tank, because this car is going to run a factory fuel tank because it's light and in the right spot. But in the boot floor, because we don't know where we're going to put the dry sump yet and some other stuff with the exhaust, etc. And because this spare wheel well is not really going to be used for a spare tyre, and it's also crimpled and crushed and got heaps of holes in it, we're just going to cut it out and put a whole new flat floor in the boot. That gives us lots of room underneath the back for anything like surge tanks, catch can that can be outside of the boot, and we can have the dry sump in there, so it'll give us plenty of room to work with. So we're going to reinforce that with a bit of bar work, put a new flat floor in the back, and that'll be the fab work for the boot. So it's a lot to do, but yeah, not too bad. Not as bad as we probably originally thought. I'm starting to have my doubts about coming to Grim Performance, and it's not about his workmanship. It's not about his taste in cars, it's about his taste in music. All right, one of the worst parts about having a long-term project car is they can sit around for a bit, and unfortunately our GT-R has been caught in the rain twice, once on the way here, once just before GT-R Festival, and this happens. You just get some surface rust, so I need to whiz all this off and get it all ready so that Dennis can weld these plates into the floor of the car. He's working on the GT-R. I'm gonna get this stuff ready and we'll keep things moving. Now you may have seen in the video we did with AGI that the floor in this car is so bad that they made up some plates that basically reinforce the floor. So that's what we're installing right now. We have to grind back all the surface rust and all the debris and crappy bits of the floor so that we can get this in there and basically strengthen up the floor. Have a look. So when it comes to fabrication work, it's kind of like building an engine where you've got to, measure, trial fit, pull apart, adjust, refit, measure, pull it apart, etc. until you're ready for the final assembly. So at the moment, what we're doing is we've cleaned up all the material on the floor. We've got to put the cage back in the car, line all the holes up, tack the plates in, and then essentially once they're tacked in, we pull the cage out and then we can weld it all. Obviously do all of this on the ground and then we'll put it on the hoist to do all the underneath as well. So cage going back in and then we'll start some tackety-tack. All right, a tip for young players when you're doing a bolt-in roll cage into your car, they have a bit of spring in them. So when you pull it out, sometimes one bit might pop out, and then to get it all back together, sometimes you get a little bit of pushing and shoving. But Dennis has a nice little trick, and that is you put a ratchet strap between the front and back of the cage here to pull it tight so we can get this last notch into the last top bar in. So let's see it.
So pretty much just going to lift the floor up so we can actually get some stitch welding around it so it attaches properly, because at the moment the floor's a bit of an ocean going motion. So yeah.
So Dennis has finished tacking in the reinforcement plates into the floor for the roll cage that the guys at AGI made. Essentially we had to tack them in inside the car first with the cage in so they didn't move around. Now we have to take the cage out. You can then weld them in properly. Then the cage goes back in again. It goes on the hoist, and then we weld the plates that go under the car, cage out, weld it in, and that's all the welding work for that done. And then the cage is going to go in one more time so we can then get the seats mounted into the car as well as all the other fab work. So essentially our goal on the first day of working on the car was to basically sort out getting those plates in for the cage, which we've pretty much managed to do. So that's day one here at Grim Performance. we'll get this cage out as the last thing we do, and then we'll be back soon to get some more done.